Conclave. We're just about giving another couple of minutes so that people can join in. So just please hold on for a minute or so, then we can start. All right, I think time to start. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. This is very interesting to have all of you with us today. My name is Prasad Nathu. I look after the ITC CIO services business, which is primarily to provide services to the CIOs of various organizations. And it is my great pleasure to introduce and welcome Kumar Mishra, who is the Vice President for IT in Reynolds Consumer Packages. Kumar has been with Reynolds for more than about 3 years, and he has carried out various different roles in various organizations. In Reynolds, he is handling the entire strategy, direction, and management of the IT operations. He leads the development and the operations part of it, as well as he has been involved in various interesting projects like IT integration, transformation, strategy planning, as well as the ERP implementation for SAP. Kumar also has been, working with various organizations like Chamberlain, Granger, Quest, Intel in the past, and he's more than about 30 years of experience, a very rich experience across the globe. And so, Kumar, welcome, and thank you for joining us in today's event. So, just a little bit of brief about what we are doing today. Obviously, all of you know that there's we are all witnessing a black swan event, which has impacted every industry, every organization and individual. Some of the things like, the new normal, social distancing, as well as, things like lockdown are something which are almost becoming like cliched verbs or norms as we speak today. It's already almost about 5 months in the entire COVID stage. We have obviously been, in this stage, there is a lot of collaboration which has happened on account of IT. Information technology has enabled a lot of different areas in terms of making sure that the organizations continue to work in a manner which will enable the business. And in this particular situation, the CIOs who have really been the pivotal in terms of making things happen for the organizations have undergone huge amount of challenges. And in these different challenges that's faced by the CIO, there has been certain action which has been taken by the CIOs when the COVID impact came into the force, as well as during and after the effect of COVID. There are a lot of initiatives which are being planned by the CIOs. And today, the main objective and initiative for us for today is that we want to hear from Kumar and obviously discuss a few very important points in terms of what are these various interesting things that the CIOs are doing today in these challenging times. And this virtual conclave will try and address some of these important facets of these challenges by the CIOs, especially from the perspective of how do we handle these situations from a safety, security, etc. And therefore, Kumar, first of all, welcome again, and would like to say something to the audience before I start the questions.
Thanks, Prasad. Glad to be here and glad to share my experience during this time. It has been a very, very exciting time in terms of really mobilizing the workforce and really addressing some of the things from an IT perspective. So again, thanks for this. Looking forward to the dialogue. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I think Prasad shared a little bit. At Reynolds Consumer Products, one of the things we really pay attention to is the safety. And I just want to make sure that during the dialogue, I'm able to share some things, what that means as a corporations to the IT. And that is will go. So looking forward to the dialogue, Prasad.
Thank you very much, Kumar. And so, as an IT leader, Kumar, in the CPG industry, obviously there are a lot of initiatives you mentioned about the safety and security part of it, which is very of prime importance. Uh, what kind of intervention did you have to really, incorporate in this very peculiar situation? And do you see that these, initiatives or intervention that you have taken forth? Are they going to continue for a long time, or what is the prognosis for this particular interventions?
Yeah, so to get this topic, I'll take you a little bit back in March. So in March, I was traveling on a business abroad, and at that time, I realized that we are hitting with this COVID-19, and there was no preparation because it came in. We didn't know how that is going to really impact us, whether it is short term, long term, no idea about it. So when I came back to US, one of the things I learned that I had to quarantine myself for almost 2 weeks. I couldn't go to office, and that meant that I needed to completely operate and work from home, which was and at Reynolds, we were not an environment where we had a history of working from home and providing the tools and technologies in terms of how people will manage on a remote environment. We did had few cases on exception basis where people will work. Now, the good thing for us was that as a business, one of the things we measure and we really take pride, and it is the focus point for us, is the health and safety of employees. Now, that is not to mean just being in a physical manufacturing place, whether it is in the plant or the warehouse, but in fact, in a day to day, our mission is the way people come to work in the office, they can go back the same way. Now, that focus, in fact, help us to really adjust to the safety and security when we had to really, from an IT perspective, mobilize people because the culture was there and we had no very strong project plan to really enhance this. So quickly, what we did is we pretty much enabled people and expanded the use of our current technology. So whether we are talking about how do we use work from home in terms of Microsoft Teams from a collaboration point of view, that is what we use. There are many other partners use something different, but how do we really get that? So we wanted to make sure that we really make sure the security and safety is really expanded. We empowered people within a culture, and while we're working through the security and safety from a tooling point of view. So we were not like trying to really put, let's get the security in place 100% before we enable, but we wanted to make sure that we have, as we are building this, we are also walking the walk and making that happen.
Right. Thank you so much, Kumar. And I think one of the biggest challenges during this time is also to make sure that the data and the ability to ensure that the data security as well as the ability of applications to be functioning for business users to work during this time is also of paramount importance, and that is also to that extent extremely critical from the security aspect of it. So how have you ensured that, and what are the typical interventions that you have done in this particular stage?
Yeah. So we did think quite a bit about this, and one of the things what we wanted to make sure that our data is not just within the four walls of the company. We have partners like yours who actually help us really carry the business on. So we quickly start thinking about what kind of parameters we need to put in place to really make sure that the data is secure. And we do have, in fact, even prior to this, data was one of the things which we already had in mind because we operate from a manufacturing. So data does become the same thing from a, and we also went public, by the way, earlier this year. So it was very important for us to make sure that we have a, so we do have a lot of training program. We in fact expedited some of those things, training program, to make sure that the culturally everyone within the company is aware and understands. We also did few assessments to make sure that people are really getting the understanding of what the security means and how do you protect. So we pretty much made a culture of every employee to become a firewall for us and make sure that they think about it, they are aware of it, because there are many things get into the place, whether it is a incoming data or outgoing data or data within that, because we had to work through a lot of things, because as many of the other organizations might have to deal with print, had to deal with how do you share the files in this kind of environment. So I think the training was one of the things. We also make sure our partners have a program and they understand how their employees will work from home, how they will protect their laptops. We had to do the same thing, that we wanted to make sure that we have, whether it is a virus program or whether it is a protection program or whether it is an understanding, we enable. So that journey continues, but that is what we did.
Thank you. So obviously, I think one of the biggest challenges during this time also has been, and which is what a lot of CIOs have been sharing with us, that the cost escalation in the initial stages was always a concern, right? And at the same time, owing to the pressures of the challenges on hand, there's also a pressure in terms of how do we manage the cost while providing the secure environment for the organization to function. So are there any specific, intervention that you have put in place in terms of balancing this cost versus security, or is there a sort of balance that you have agreed and prioritized based on that?
Yeah. So as we became public company earlier this year, we had to. One of our biggest focus for this year and even for continues to ensure that we are a complete standalone company, and that does have a pillar of security and safety. So the cost plan in terms of really making sure that we had programmed, that was kind of, we were a little bit in that advantage that we did have some plan to really think through, that we create an environment, build the company from a IT infrastructure, from IT applications, from those point of view, that we do have. So we had planned for some of those things. What we are doing as we walk through this, we are making sure that our executive alignment is pretty much on a very regular frequency, because that's the one thing we wanted to make sure that we intervene, we really showcase in terms of how do we really make sure. So it has not been a huge challenge for us in terms of the cost point of view, but what has been important, that really making sure that everyone in the company understands, because cost is not the direct cost in terms of how do we really put a technology in place or a filtering in place, or how do you protect your network or infrastructure. It was also about really making sure that everyone in the company is really paying attention to their time, how they do these kind of things. So as many of the organizations are doing, we really wanted to make sure that people are taking time before they open the email, before they look at the attachment, because everyone is working from different locations. So cost was not a very huge thing, but we also got alignment. So we're a little bit ahead in that, from that perspective.
Excellent. I think this also brings us to a sort of a position where we should go to the audience and go for the first poll. And while the poll is being flashed to the audience, I will continue and ask you a very simple question, Kumar.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, from your organization's context, okay. If you were to really prioritize one of these things in terms of what becomes as your first topmost priority? What would be your response to this?
Yeah, so for us, as I said, that we became an independent company earlier this year, and one of the key things for us is really become a stand-alone company, self-sufficient in terms of the information technology, from an infrastructure, from an application, from a security. So I think if I had to choose out of this four, I think for me it will be stabilizing the core system and operation in a stand-alone company environment.
Okay, fantastic. Obviously, I mean, it's there's no right or wrong answer to this. Everybody will have different priorities, and very honestly, I think the audience also has polled in the same manner as what your priorities are. Stabilization seems to be the highest priority, followed by, of course, security and standards, and then the rest of the two options. So I think it's a very interesting outcome. Given that, obviously, I mean, there's a lot of reprioritization and everything that is happening today. Obviously, one of the key factors of this is also the quality part of it. This is a new normal, right? I mean, there are all kinds of phrases which are being used. But in this particular environment, in the distributed delivery model, the quality measurement and quality metrics also become very critical, and the approach to measure that also becomes very different. So how are you dealing with this, Kumar?
Yeah. So, few things we wanted to make sure from a quality point of view that, and especially from an IT perspective, that we are able to keep that on the forefront. And that was that how do we not lose the productivity of the company when people are working from a remote environment? And the second part, which we just talked a little bit about, making sure that there is a security in place. So what we have done in our company, that we wanted to make sure that we provided the tools such as collaboration tools. We really work with Microsoft. Our internal infrastructure team did a great job in making sure that we are able to have our collaboration tools efficient. So that's the one thing we did. We also started looking at from a digital workforce point of view that how can we really take some advantage through this. We have had that digital workforce program for almost now 2 years, and we believe it is one of the very successful initiative we have had, because we are able to really align people and the company to get that digital workforce. Some people call it RPA and other things. So that is what we did. So we focused quite a bit in terms of the collaboration, creating an environment which is safe for people to work. Because the thing what we were not sure, and we are still not, as we are learning, that we do not know how long this environment is going to continue. And that was pretty much seen and visioned by our CEO from that perspective, that hey, we don't know how long what we're going to do. So let's make sure, as we keep safety as the number one priority for the company, let's make sure that we create an environment when people don't have to really worry about their families, their workplace, and other things. Create a process and a technology. So that is what we did, Prashad, that in terms of collaborating environment we created. We also use our ERP systems and other systems which are pretty much functioning from wherever you can work. We wanted to make sure that they are, from a security point of view, we don't have any kind of concerns. So that is what we did.
Right. I think that's a very interesting perspective. There is another, and this is something which I wanted to specifically, get an insight from you, is that uh, there have been a lot of cases where, in the current situation, especially from the perspective of the way that employees are working for various organizations, it is the experience of these, employees in terms of their way of work, their way of working, their way of engaging with the organization itself. is totally different. And in this particular context, is there any a specific way that you are looking at it from the perspective of inducting some sort of an experience-based measurement criteria or parameters that will give you an insight about, even from the employee engagement perspective, that flows down into the quality of the service? So is it something that is on your radar?
Yeah, so I think we were, as I was sharing, that for us becoming a standalone company was very important. So what we had done, so we were in the process. I'll give an example that how did we really make sure that we measure this, and in terms of morale and people's engagement and those things. So we had started our big SAP separation program, which was a huge program we wanted to make sure that we complete from a separation point of view. And during the middle of this project, we learned about this COVID. We had no plans. We did have plans, just like many other IT organizations. They will have all kind of different plans that, hey, what happens in case employees are not able to come to work? What happens if your network fails? What happens? You do a lot of what happens and you plan that. But you never plan that we are going to be in 100% in an environment where people are working from wherever they are, not necessarily even primary home. So what we did at that point of time, we wanted to really make sure that we are engaged with the employees. So from a company perspective, our CEO, which we believes very much in the engagement, we had made sure the leadership team is really getting into the staff. So say, for example, in my staff meeting, CEO will come and he will just share the thoughts. The same thing, I would go to 2 levels down and make sure that I'm engaged with the employees. So what we did from that point of view, to listen, understand from that. The second thing was purely that making sure that we are able to provide tools, which we talked about, the collaboration, and we are able to get a feedback, listens to people, that what is working, what is not working from them. So say, for example, there are people who are working from home and some people will come on video. They feel very comfortable, they want to be in the video discussion, just like what we are doing right now. And there will be some people who will not be, because of many other, because depending on the at home, what location they are in, because now it's not just about the employees, the entire employee ecosystem, whether it's a children's, whether it's a spouse or whoever is there, they are all trying to work using home as an office location. So we really were trying to make sure that we put ourselves in a position of the employees and engagement, and making sure that we take a continuous feedback from that point of view, from a direct, not just doing a survey kind of thing, but getting into there, listening to people. And I think that is what we did. And that, in our mind, I think I have heard, once we completed, we went live with SAP implementations, which I just talked about, completely remote. Means we had nobody, neither the infrastructure, nor application, nor business people. Everybody did the entire, means from a design to implementation to hypercare, was completely done remote. And we thought that it was one of the successful program we did, with a lot of engagement. And some of the feedback what I heard, and that many people said, hey, this kind of working, actually we were very engaged, it was more productive, we could work in the time without feeling that I had to run to an office or drive for 1 hour or 2 hours. So I think for us it was a positive, it came out with positive. And still that is keep continuing, Prashad. So it's not that it's a journey. We need to see, because as we are, the duration is getting longer and longer. Some of the people are more comfortable. Means I do miss personally being in the office, because I feel that a lot of times I can just walk into a place, grab a donut and talk and have a conversation with the people, versus becoming a machine-based collaboration. So I do, but so we just keep calibrating, understanding people, and see how we can do.
Understand. I think the corollary probably, whether right or wrong, could be that people are more productive working from home than working from office. And maybe I mean, it's just a side comment on this, but I think that is perhaps was the outcome of this entire thing. Having said, obviously, I mean, there are a lot of projects which were in flight during this entire before the COVID came and hit us, and some of these are always transformation projects. Some of these are very critical projects in terms of making sure that the new initiatives that you're planning to do from a business perspective are prepared and ready from that perspective. So, what has transpired and how have you gone ahead these kind of projects?
Yeah, so we didn't had we continuously review our plan. Means that's part of the company where manufacturing organizations, we understand the demand and supply. So we continuously monitor what is in our plate in terms of short term for this year and next year and year after, and look at whether we need to rebalance anything. So what we did in our case, we did not change the direction, because the learning what we had from the project, what we described, that we were quite engaged, quite motivated, and also we had a time sensitivity to make sure that that happens. Now, while we can look at this, in fact, the interesting thing, Prashad, that what we saw when people are working from home in COVID-19, and there could be many of people on this call, their companies may be in the same situation, that especially in our situation when people are working from home, what we make is really making things which simplifies the life of people at home. So we make bakeware, we make cookware, we make a lot of cleaning, waste management kind of things. Our demand pretty much, just like many others, went up a little bit. So not only that we had to really deal with the current plan, we also had to deal with the demand and adjusting the demand to make sure that we are able to serve our customers, especially in the need when we are there for the consumers and the retailers. So the key focus for us adjustment was to making sure that we stay focused. We stay focused, keeping the forefront of safety and consumer or the customer in mind, or whether it is an internal customer, whether it is an external customers. That is what it did, and that was the and that works pretty well for us in general. But we adjusted at times. We wanted to make sure that we have a program where we are able to really communicate much more efficiently. So communication in this environment, to me, I think is the biggest thing. Means if you are not leading the communication, things might trail and may have an impact. We were just trying to do that.
That's very interesting. I think this brings us to a second poll question for the audience, and so we just flash it on the screen. It's obviously, I mean, it's an extension of what I was just discussing with you, Kumar, and there's again different priorities for different organizations. For you, there was a different priority. Maybe some other organizations have a different priority. And from that perspective, I think this is something which you obviously answered in a particular way. But if I were to just recast this question and say that, okay, if you were to answer this question, how would you plan for your projects which were particularly planned before the COVID impact, and how are you going to take it forward? What would be your answer?
Right. So I know people are taking polls. So I don't want to influence anybody, but for us, as I was sharing, that recalibrate and start urgent execution for prioritized projects. So we continuously keep looking at this, but we did want to take and make sure, because it at one point of time it did come out, should we continue our separation project? Because even though that is the most critical initiative for us, but we wanted to make sure. So we did recalibrate, and we got an unanimous feedback from everywhere, from the business to IT, that we as a team, we believe we can do it. So that is what I think we thought. And it's interesting to see here.
So I think the audience response is also very much split between recalibrate the projects in either a protracted manner or prioritized manner. So very, very interesting result. And I'm sure, I mean, there's no right or wrong here. Again, it's something which is directly relevant to the business and the industry and the context of the market. So therefore, very interesting things to really make a note of it. Now, given this, I think let me just go forward and sort of put forth the one of the most difficult questions. Okay, in the current context is obviously, I mean, this is a big disruption, and in this disruption, in this environment, not only there is a sustenance part which is very critical, but also one of the most important part is also the business growth. And there are always these challenges in the business. Will have to continue to pursue those growth trajectories. So what is it that you are doing in order to help the business in this particular trajectory? How are you helping with IT initiatives that will help business grow? Which are your top 2 or 3 priority initiatives?
Yes. So managing the business means that the IT is we play within Renal Consumer Products. IT is an enabler, and in cases, it is driver for certain things where we drive. So what we did to make sure that while we are focused on our #1 priority of becoming a standalone company, we also wanted to make sure that we are able to your point, we are able to partner with the business to ensure that we are in front with customers, with consumers, with our sales, with our marketing, with our manufacturing operations, that we are able to grow. We have few programs. So #1, we do have IoT program where we are really trying to make sure that we do have a digital initiative at the manufacturing plant, because as we are thinking of a safe environment. And some of those actually tie pretty quick. Interestingly, that when we look at really managing equipments, whether we are thinking in the manufacturing and other locations, how can we use the technology? How can we really measure the efficiency of the plant? How can we make sure that we have analytics data in front of the people, not necessarily just the reporting side of it? So some of the key things what we have done is really making sure that we have a secure infrastructure. So platform should not be thought as when people are thinking of the growth, that becomes an issue. We are utilizing cloud. Cloud is one of the key things we are looking at, whether it is a software as a service or infrastructure as a service. We are really trying to make sure that we take advantage of it. The second thing is in the digital initiatives, whether it is a IoT program or a digital workforce program. We are really focused on that while we are managing the other initiatives. So these are some of the initiatives we are doing to make sure that we have a parallel activity to support enable the business growth and also sustain. Means we have sustainability program, and we wanted to make sure that we are able to manage that as part of the growth.
Interesting. And obviously, I think one of these, some of these things, like you mentioned, cloud enablement and transformation, digital transformation, which is one of the key things that you are also, in the process of moving towards. Where do you see that your application transformation or transition that you are planning? Where is maximum focus going to be? Which part of the entire supply chain that you are focusing on?
Yeah, so for us, and we are a little bit in the unique, maybe compared to others, or maybe others are in the same situation, don't know about it. But for us, making sure that our system application separation has minimum to no business impact or disruption. So that's the key for us. So when we are trying to have either the financial systems our HR systems, our manufacturing systems, when we are separating, we want to make sure they are simplified and they are there without a disruption. So that's the second part, as I talked about from the digital point of view. So we wanted to make sure that we create that environment, the foundation. Means we are still in the journey. It's a maturing organization. We are learning what is happening in the technology space outside. Uh, so some of them we are adopting as quickly as we can adopt, where we do not have a disruption, because uh, we cannot deploy a technology in our environment where it negatively impacts or can impact in terms of the safety. So that is where we are focused, Prashant.
Thank you very much. I'm sure there are questions which the audience is also, sending across, and I will get to those questions in a couple of minutes. But before I get there, I think from a various prioritization perspective, if I were to state very clearly that where are you putting your maximum money, so to say, in the next 12 months, which areas that you'll be investing in? How do you see yourself going?
Um, so for us, I think our entire this year and the next year is going to focus on two investment. Is really separation of applications and systems for us, and the second thing in the digital program, because we want to make sure that we have a robust supply chain process. So we are spending money and improving, stabilizing, taking the next step in the supply chain initiative of technologies, and also in the manufacturing operations, while a horizontal program of digital workforce to make sure. So these are the places we are investing our time. That is where we are investing our energy, and that is what is our focus.
Right. So there is one very interesting question which has come in, and this I thought this is something which is very pertinent in the current context as well. So obviously, there are always suppliers and always customers, and vendor customer contracts are always there, right? Given the current context, there's a lot of discussion about how do you see these contracts changing in the coming few months, and to that extent, are they really contracts which you're looking at from a risk sharing perspective with your suppliers? Is it changing dramatically in terms of the way that contracts are being drawn, or do you see that it will continue to be in the same manner that those were? This is more from a generic question, Kumar, than very specific to Reynolds.
Yeah. So if your question is towards the contract of IT services, if that
Yeah,
is that what it is, okay.
that is
So
correct. Yeah.
we continuously, when we look at an ecosystem of information technology, we believe that we need to partner with uh, with strategic partners. I hate to use the word vendors or suppliers. So strategic partners, because we want to be in a strategic partner relationship, um, and make sure that we understand that what is the short term and the long term what we are in. So one of the things we continuously look from any kind of contracts which we build with a, that who is playing a short term and who is playing a long range, and that is certainly one of the things we are looking at. We are also looking at, from that point of view, the cloud readiness, because using the word cloud is one thing, and really having the caliber and the skills and the process built to make sure that they are able to not just help us support, but in cases drive, because working remote is not new. This has been there for many years. Many of people might have started that way. But what is important is the technology, pace of technology is very fast. Means by the time you really understand one technology, the innovators and entrepreneurs bring a new technology. Means so we want to make sure that we have partners who understands that, and they understand from that point of view, and also that what is the agility in the contract. It's very important that there is a agility in the contract to make sure that we are able to adjust when we need to adjust. So those are some of the things we start looking at.
Right. See, one very important question.
There's certainly a long debate, and we always think from an investment point of view, what goes as a capital, what goes as an expense, and some of the technologies are helping change some of those accounting practices and impacting the financials. But those are not that of a high priority for us. It is more the others what I just described.
That's right. In fact, as an extension of that, the second question which is coming in, which is and it's a very pretty common question across the board, is cloud is, I mean, you also mentioned it, cloud is something which is very much on the priority list for you. But do you see in the next about 12 to 18 months, the cloud adoption will rapidly grow, and even from the perspective of minimizing the number of applications, application rationalization leading into cloud migration? Is that how you see it? What is your view on that?
Yeah. So in summary, we do believe the cloud adoption is there. Means people are because of many other factors, because the empowerment and the focus of internal IT. We are not a Microsoft or a Google. We are not a development shop. We are a manufacturer. And what we look at is the software where it enables us, drive us, or helps us drive the speed in the business. And in general, in totality, we do see the cloud adoption is improving. In fact, if I just put my flavor of that, the biggest challenge of cloud adoption was the IT itself, because we always think of a process and a technology before we do anything. So that was one thing we always we are looking at a simplification. Second part of a question, that when we do this, are we looking for simplification? Absolutely. To me, that going to cloud is not just for the sake of going to cloud. Going to the cloud is the agility and the simplifications. How do we take a complex IT infrastructure? And I'm not mean the infrastructure as a technical, I'm just saying the overall, and simplify that for the business don't have to really understand 15, 200, 300 applications names. They don't have to know that. They just go at one place and perform the job and get it out. So yes, that is in our focus.
This particular program, I know there's just about a minute and a half left from the scheduled time. So thank you very much, Kumar, for your precious time. I know there are some more questions, but let me assure that we will definitely respond to that.
Thanks, Prashad. I think Prashad.
Thank you very much, Kumar, and insight by in your leadership, and I think this will, I'm sure that will definitely beneficial for most of us. And once again,
thanks, Prashad. And I hope it was a value add to you and to your organizations. And feel free, if there is anything I can share, I'll be more than happy to work through this moderation program. So you can send those questions to Prashad or somebody, and I'll be more than happy to share my thought. Thanks again. So thanks everyone. I know it is a different times. People are from a different time zone. So I would say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. And thanks for listening to me. Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And please do send in your response to these survey questions, as well as any other question that you may have. Thank Thank you very much. Stay safe.